Welcome back to the deep dive. You gave us the sources, and we've distilled what is just a massive news event, one that has reshaped the entire trajectory of commercial quantum computing.
It really has. We're talking about an acquisition that's not just shuffling players around.
No, this one fundamentally changes the game for everyone in the industry. It could be moving the timeline for truly useful fault-tolerant systems way, way closer.
It really could.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So this is a huge market-defining moment. The news dropped January 7th, 2026. D-Wave Quantum Inc., that's NYSE, ticker QBTS, has agreed to acquire Quantum Circuits Inc., or QCI.
And this isn't just some small venture deal. The price tag is, what, $550 million?
$550 million. And that's split between $300 million in D-Wave common stock and $250 million in cash.
Wow, $500 million is huge, especially for tech that, a lot of people still see as being stuck in the research lab.
It is. But you're right, the money is the headline, but the strategy is the real story here.
Right. For years, D-Wave has been the sort of champion of quantum annealing, brilliant at solving these really complex optimization problems right now.
Exactly. While everyone else, IBM, Google, IonQ, they've all staked their future on the universal gate model system.
Which is the long-term prize, right, for things like chemistry and material science.
And that's the strategic brilliance of this deal. This acquisition instantly transforms D-Wave from a niche, specialized vendor into a comprehensive platform provider.
So by grabbing QCI's tech, their gate model technology, D-Wave suddenly becomes the only company that can play in both sandboxes.
The only player.
Yeah.
They're positioned to address the full spectrum, from immediate optimization needs to that long-term universal computation goal.
It feels like a classic leapfrog the industry maneuver, but let me push back on that for a second.
Sure.
D-Wave has spent 2 decades perfecting annealing. Isn't trying to manage two fundamentally different and complex hardware platforms a massive distraction? Doesn't it risk diluting what they're best at?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what the sources indicate is that the real synergy is in the infrastructure.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they aren't starting from scratch. D-Wave brings all this experience with superconducting processors, with control systems, and their cloud platform, Leap.
Which is already production grade.
Exactly. This whole operational framework, which their gate model rivals don't really have in the same way, can now be directly applied to QCI's tech. They think they can get gate model systems to market as early as this year, 2026.
And that infrastructure expertise is probably the biggest challenge in scaling this stuff. Getting all those qubits controlled at, cryogenic temperatures has always been the real bottleneck.
Absolutely. The wiring is a nightmare. To control thousands of qubits, you need thousands of physical wires running into that super cold fridge.
I've seen the pictures. It looks like a rat's nest of gold wire.
Right. But D-Wave showed something off at CES 2026. That's a huge deal here. They already use this multiplex digital to analog converter tech, which lets them control tens of thousands of qubits with only 200 bias wires.
Wait. Tens of thousands of computing elements with just 200 connections? That's like trying to run a whole data center with one power cord.
Exactly. They perfected that for their annealing architecture, which uses a ton of qubits. And now they could just apply that same proven, scalable control system, the one thing their rivals are really struggling with, directly to QCI's gate model design.
So if they've already solved the wiring problem, that's a massive accelerator.
It's a huge one.
Okay, so D-Wave brings the scale, the cloud platform, the control system. Let's talk about the secret sauce. Quantum Circuits, QCI, founded back in 2015 by some Yale scientists.
Including Dr. Rob Skulkov, who is a true pioneer in this field.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting, because their whole approach attacks the very nature of quantum errors.
I love the QCI story because they were so quiet for years. They completely avoided the hype cycle. No visionware. Oh. Their entire goal was built on this simple but actually radical philosophy. Correct first, then scale.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means they looked around and saw everyone else just building bigger and bigger noisy machines.
Right, hoping brute force would win. Just throw thousands of physical qubits at the problem to get one stable, logical qubit.
Exactly. QCI decided to engineer the qubit itself to make the errors easier to find and fix.
So if the common strategy is to just shout louder than the noise,
yeah,
QCI's strategy is to make the noise speak a different language, a language we can easily translate and just, delete.
That is a perfect analogy. Their innovation is this dual rail superconducting qubit architecture. It has error detection built right in.
Okay, so let's simplify the physics for you, the learner. How does that actually work?
So in a standard qubit, your information is stored in one place, like a single pendulum swing. If something corrupts that swing, it's a random error, a bit flip, or a phase flip. You often have to guess how to fix it.
Which needs these super complex error correction codes and just massive redundancy.
Precisely. Now think about QCI's dual rail system. Instead of one place, they use two microwave cavities, the dual rails, to encode the state. So if the info should be a logical 0, they might store it as 0 photons in cavity A and 1 in cavity B.
Ah, I see. So the system always expects the total number of photons to be 1.
You got it. The system has to stay in that code space. Now, if the most common type of noise happens, a photon just disappears.
Photon loss.
So this system instantly falls out of that code space into a state with 0 photons. And that is a state the system can immediately detect.
Okay, so that's the magic. It naturally converts the most common noise into a detectable erasure error.
Yes. An erasure error is where you not only know an error happened, but you know exactly where and when.
Which sounds a whole lot easier to fix.
Orders of magnitude easier. This is the whole technical insight that justifies the price tag. When you're using error correction codes, fixing an erasure error needs dramatically fewer physical qubits than fixing a random one.
It's the difference between trying to fix a totally scrambled email versus an email that just says, hey, a word is missing right here, please insert cat.
That's it. It just makes the resource scaling challenge so much lighter. The brute force method might need thousands of physical qubits for one logical one. QCI's path suggests that ratio could be much, much smaller.
And they have the data to back this up. Right?
Oh yeah, this is why D-Wave paid $500 million. QCI demonstrated state preparation and measurement, or SPAM errors, at an ultra-low 0.01% level.
Wow.
And critically, their system detects that photon loss with an efficiency over 99%.
99% efficiency on catching the main error. That's just exceptional engineering.
It is. And they also demonstrated the error hierarchy you need. They saw that phase flips are 6 times slower than the erasure rate, and bit flips are at least 140 times slower. This confirms the system is optimized for this specific kind of noise.
Which is the secret ingredient for making those higher-level error correction codes actually work efficiently.
Makes their path to fault tolerance much, much shorter.
So QCI brings this optimized, error-aware hardware, and D-Wave brings the industrial capacity to build it and put it on the cloud. What happens to QCI's core team?
That expertise is secured. Dr. Rob Skulkov, the inventor of this stuff, is going to lead an expanded R&D center for D-Wave in New Haven, Connecticut. The innovation engine stays fueled.
Okay, let's pivot and look at the financials. What kind of fuel did D-Wave have in the tank to pull off this huge deal? We're looking at their Q3 2025 results.
Yeah, the financials are pretty interesting. They really show D-Wave moving from pure R&D into a real commercial phase. Q3 2025 revenue was $3.7 million, which was a 100% increase year over year.
100% growth is solid in a market this new. And they had a GAAP gross margin of, what, 71.4%?
That's right, 71.4%.
That is incredibly healthy for a high-tech hardware company. It really speaks to the value of the annealing solutions they were already selling.
It does. But the most important number, especially when you're looking at a $550 million acquisition, was their cash. As of September 30, 2025, D-Wave had a record cash balance of over $836 million.
$836 million, that's their war chest.
Absolutely. It means the $250 million cash part of this deal is completely achievable without stressing their operations or forcing them into some complex debt deal.
So they made the move from a position of real financial strength.
For sure. And we also saw strong momentum in their core business. Closed bookings for that quarter were $2.4 million, which is up 80% from the quarter before. So the annealing business is doing great while they make this huge pivot.
Okay, let's turn to the roadmap then, because this is the promise D-Wave is making to the market about how fast they can now climb the gate model curve.
It's an aggressive timeline, for sure, and it's all based on QCI's dual-rail architecture. Right now, they have an 8 dual-rail qubit machine working with alpha users.
And the first commercial release is this year.
This year, 2026. A 17 dual-rail qubit machine will be generally available as their first gate model system.
Moving from the lab to a commercial product within months of the merger is lightning fast for this industry.
And it doesn't stop. The roadmap calls for a 40 dual-rail qubit version in 2027, then a huge leap in 2028 to a 181 dual-rail qubit version.
And that 2028 machine, that's the real test, right?
That's the key inflection point. It's specifically designed to be large enough for researchers to really start testing complex error correction techniques that take advantage of that native noise bias.
And if that machine proves out the resource reduction claims,
then they could truly be ahead of rivals who are still trying to scale up with brute force. It also confirms the whole industry is moving toward modularity.
Right. The goal isn't one giant chip. It's connecting these smaller, reliable modules together to build bigger systems.
Exactly. And their long-term target is to scale this whole architecture to about 1,000 dual-rail qubits, which would just be transformational.
So what does this all mean? I think the key takeaway is that D-Wave, a company that was kind of strategically pigeonholed as just the annealing company, has used its cash and its infrastructure expertise to pull off a massive pivot.
A really successful one, it seems.
By buying QCI's error correction first hardware, they've repositioned themselves overnight. They've gone from a single focus vendor to a dual platform leader.
A leader capable of addressing the whole commercial quantum problem set.
Exactly.
And the final provocation for you to think about is this. This entire massive bet hinges completely on the effectiveness of QCI's correct first approach.
Right. It has to work as advertised.
It has to. If the dual rail architecture really does significantly reduce the number of physical qubits you need, taking that ratio from 1,000 to 1 down to maybe 10 to 1, then D-Wave hasn't just gained an advantage.
They will have fundamentally changed the entire scaling curve for superconducting quantum computing,
forcing everyone else to rethink their brute force approach.
Which brings us to our final segment. And a reminder, this is not financial advice. Any investment involves risk, and the speculative ideas we discuss here are based strictly on public source material. They should not influence your actual investment decisions.
We're just analyzing market implications, not recommending trades.
That being said, the market did react pretty fast to this merger. D-Wave, QBTS shares were up 7.5%, and analysts started raising price targets to, $22, even $30?
Yeah, the street clearly likes the accelerated roadmap to fault tolerance.
Okay, so if D-Wave has the hardware path locked down, what's the adjacent play? What's the outrageous but plausible trade idea that comes out of this?
Well, the trade idea hinges on specialization and leverage. If D-Wave really does accelerate the availability of useful fault-tolerant hardware,
which is the entire point of the QCI acquisition.
Right. Then the market will suddenly have a desperate need for the specialized software infrastructure to actually use those machines. Hardware readiness creates software demand.
So you're saying the software layer is the next bottleneck?
It could be. So a speculative play would be to look at something like warrants for ZPTAW Quantum. The source material describes them as a pure play quantum software company.
Okay, so the logic is?
The logic is simple. If D-Wave delivers on this roadmap, that rising tide of available hardware is going to create a massive immediate demand for specialized software platforms to run on it. That could vault a software specialist like them forward.
It's a high-risk bet that the infrastructure need immediately follows the hardware breakthrough.
A very high-risk bet.
Yeah.
That's the idea.